Before lawyers for the disgraced, twice impeached former President Trump Larange even laid out their argument for his impeachment defense, the usual Republican suspects in the Senate's antebellum caucus were already out parroting the same argument about the trial, that it's nothing more than political theater.
Yeah, I think I'm ready to move on. I'm ready to end the impeachment trial because I think it's blatantly unconstitutional.
If people want to hold President Trump accountable for language, there has to be a consistent standard. And to my mind, it's a partisan farce. It is a farce. It is unconstitutional. But more than anything, it's unwise and going to divide the country.
Oh, Rand Paul even tried to argue that the Senate should impeach Majority Leader Chuck Schumer for things he said about the ex-president's Supreme Court nominees, a deflection only half as ludicrous as Wisconsin Republican Ron Johnson's.
You have to kind of ask the question, what is this impeachment all about? We now know that 45 Republican senators believe it's unconstitutional. Is this another diversionary operation? Is this meant to deflect away from potentially what the Speaker knew and when she knew it? I don't know, but I'm suspicious.
Moscow Ron provided no more evidence to back up his suspicion about Speaker Pelosi, because there is none, than he has about his other crackpot investigations, or about why his suspicions often sound like they were scripted in Moscow, where he and 7 other Republican senators and a rep spent July 4th in 2018. But none of that should surprise you. According to Politico, when it comes to the second impeachment trial, Republicans, particularly those nervous about you-know-who's continued stranglehold on the GOP, just don't want to poke the bear. Meanwhile, in the House, Wyoming Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney became the latest Republican punished by her party back home, censured over the weekend by the Wyoming GOP for her vote to impeach Orange Julius. Her House Republican colleagues voted overwhelmingly in a secret ballot to keep Cheney in her leadership position last week, and in an interview on Fox News yesterday, she doubled down on her criticism of the Republicans' toxic ex.
Somebody who has provoked an attack on the United States Capitol to prevent the counting of electoral votes, which resulted in 5 people dying, who refused to stand up immediately when he was asked and stop the violence. That is a person who does not have a role as a leader of our party going forward. We should not be embracing the former president.
Joining me now is Jason Johnson, professor of politics and journalism at Morgan State University, and Michael Steele, former chairman of the RNC. Oh, I love this combo. Michael Steele, Mr. Chairman. You know, Kevin McCarthy is a curious sort of fellow. He once said that he thought, like, Trump worked for Moscow and the Kremlin, and then he flipped over and was like, I worship Trump. I worship him like he is my God. And now his thing is to run down to Florida and be like, is it okay if I'm still speaker? It's like, it's such a strange thing. He now apparently has asked Liz Cheney to apologize for voting to impeach the guy. And she's like, I'm not apologizing for that. This guy, in what universe does he ever become Speaker of the House? Isn't Marjorie Greene more likely to be Speaker in the future than Kevin McCarthy?
Yeah, in this particular world and universe, that is exactly more likely to happen than Kevin McCarthy would ever become Speaker. If Kevin McCarthy thinks he's going to be Speaker, he really does not understand his caucus. Because that is just not happening. They don't want you to be Speaker.
Michael, he doesn't understand any. They don't understand any caucus. He's not. We're talking Tip O'Neill, Nancy Pelosi,
right?
Kevin McCarthy.
Right.
Kevin McCarthy has no courage. He's like the lion in The Wiz.
Let's put it this way: when he busts a move to go down to Mar-a-Lago to bend the knee, or something else. We haven't figured out what yet. I don't know what he got out of it, but to go bend the knee, that did not sit well with a lot of Republicans, not just in D.C., but in the donor community and around the country. It just didn't. They're tired of Trump, and they're hoping that the leader and others can, going back to the analogy of, breaking away from Trump, the bear is stalking the neighborhood. What do? You don't hide in your house. At some point, you got to go deal with the bear. And so they've got to deal with him. And the folks inside and outside the party are looking for a leader to do that, or a group of leaders. Right now, the only leader in the party that is clearly prepared to do this is Liz Cheney. God bless. I'm with you, Liz. If I can cut whatever you need me to do, I'm there. Because the reality of it is it's going to take that kind of in-your-face leadership, Joy, to push back on this. It does not exist among the men in the party. It has always existed largely with the women, and clearly Liz has shown that.
You know what, Jason, but here's the thing. Liz Cheney is also in no way likely to ever become speaker, because the thing is that the rational actors that Michael Steele just described, if they were rational actors, they'd all line up behind Dick Cheney and just oust the Q people and the Trump people and just be like, y'all shut up. Matt Gaetz, nobody cares about you. Like, they would just literally body them. But I think back to John Boehner, who was a far smarter seeming guy, even when he was at the bar, than McCarthy is.
Yes.
When the Tea Party caucus rose up, he shrank back. He let them take over. And now who runs the party? The Tea Party caucus, right? Don't we have a problem here that in general, the idea in the Republican world has just been to fade back and let the bad guys take over?
The Republicans have become sort of that Star Trek mirror universe where, like, you have to kill the next leader to take over. Like, they don't seem to have a real process of finding leaders anymore. It's like it's just an evil version of McCarthy that replaced the guy. And let's be clear, all of these people are conservatives. All of these people could care less about police reform. All of these people could care less about the environment. This is literally a Trump issue. So McCarthy, who at one point was just your regular Republican, has been replaced by the evil mustache McCarthy, who's decided that his only way of retaining power is to basically do whatever Trump wants him to do and go along with Marjorie Taylor Greene. Here's the problem, though, and I think it's not just a problem for American democracy. It's a problem within the Republican Party. They keep trying to acquiesce to people who don't want to govern. Marjorie Taylor Greene doesn't want to govern. Matt Gaetz doesn't want to govern. They want to make noise and they want to antagonize and they want to own the libs. So at some point, the Republicans have to figure out, do we want to be a governing party or do we just want to be a bunch of trolls who make money off the taxpayer? Because right now they're doing more of the latter than they are the former.
More than that, real quick.
Well, that's the issue, too, because, yeah, please do. Please, Michael.
Yeah, no, I was going to say more than that, Jason. They want to grift. This is not, you're absolutely right. It's not about governing.
Oh, yeah.
It's about grifting. You know, Marjorie Taylor Greene, in the midst of all of this, what is she doing? She's sending out fundraising letters and bragging about how much money she's raising. And now that she's got more time on her hand, what do you think she's going to do?
Yeah.
What is Matt Gaetz doing? This is not. This is one of the issues that goes back for some time inside the party with a lot of rank and file Republicans about how this sort of money class, this money grab, has driven a lot of good politicians away from policy. To your point, Jason, and into a much darker place.
Okay, let me ask you real quick to stay with you just for a second, Michael Steele, because you used to be in charge of this process where you have to try to raise money. There are certain kinds of donors who like certain kinds of policies, right? There's a finite set of money that's out there for politics. But as you said, you now have the Washington Post were writing that Republicans are actually worried that this might cause problems in 2022 because your sort of regular order donor is like, I'm not trying to donate to the party of QAnon. Bye.
Right.
And then you've got this new base of money that she can raise directly from the QAnon people. And so she can get around the donors. What would you do if you were chairman of the party right now? What would you even do about all of this? Could you even raise money in this environment?
Well, it's a very difficult environment, particularly given that you have a greater sensitivity among the major donors, and particularly in the corporate community, who are now looking at the backlash to their contributions to certain Republicans, particularly those QAnon-aligned, et cetera. So the whole playing field is changing right before their eyes, and that's one of the big concerns for the Republican Congressional Committee, the Senatorial Committee, and the RNC, made more difficult because Trump still has his fingers in a lot of those donor holes, and that's a problem as well.
Yeah. It's a problem. Very quickly, we're out of time, Jason Johnson. My producers are going to kill me. But do Democrats then, is the smart move, Mr. Political Scientist, for Democrats to just run all their ads on QAnon in 2022 and say, this person is QAnon, that person, they're all associated with QAnon. You want QAnon out? Vote for the Democrat.
Joy, by next summer, I can all but guarantee, seeing as the lack of effort that's been put into capturing a lot of these people. There will be more attacks. There will be more violence. By next summer, it will be impossible to run ads against Republicans without talking about QAnon, without talking about terrorists. And yes, regular donors, suburban donors don't want to give them money. And if I'm Home Depot or McDonald's, the last thing I want to do is give somebody $1,500 for a campaign when they're going to be associated with the horn-wearing, vegan terrorist who attacked the White House. This is going to devastate the Republican Party financially in 2022 as far as raising money for anybody but your absolute kooks from the Georgia 14th.
You're going to have my cousin Jackie Reed call me. Don't give vegans a bad name. Don't even go there with the vegans. They don't claim him. Jason
Only
Johnson,
if they wear
Michael
horns
Steele.
and run into the White House.
They don't claim him. Thank you very much, both of you gentlemen. Have a great evening.